Coming up on today's show, we got the latest Broncos news, which features a bit of a surprising cut. So that triggered us to do 3 more surprise cut candidates for the Broncos and GM George Paton, as he asked to get his roster down to 53 players by Tuesday afternoon. Plus, we got to meet the new team president at Mile High, Damani Leach. We'll look at him and some of his interesting presser takeaways he had at his introductory press conference today, which included some new stadium and uniform talk, so stay tuned for that. But before we really jump into today's show, it is officially regular season time here, right? No more preseason football, so we are getting ready for Week 1 Broncos at Seahawks Monday Night Football by doing a sub-battle with our Seahawks channel here at Chat Sports. We're starting even, 0-0. I hear Tyler right now, host of our Seahawks channel. He's got to deal with Geno Smith this year. Have fun. Let's beat him on the field, and let's beat him in subs as well by hitting that subscribe button. Now, let's jump into the latest news surrounding the Broncos. So, Ian Rappaport tweeting out this morning that punter Sam Martin is being released today by Denver after indicating he would refuse any pay reduction. He was a top 5 punter statistically in 2021 and set Broncos' all-time record for net punting last season. Will have interest. I could think of one team in upstate New York that might have some interest in Sam Martin. Now, following up that news was Mike Kliss adding some extra color to this picture here. Veteran punter Sam Martin is about to be released, sources confirmed. Broncos going with Corliss Waitman, who has minimal experience but is $1.4 million cheaper, boots lefty, and has a strong leg. Martin was scheduled to make $2.25 million. Team informed him yesterday he would not accept a pay cut. So what I find interesting about this is that the Broncos are fine if they want to save some money, if they don't think that Sam Martin is $1.5 or $1.4 million better than Waitman. But my only question is there a plan to allocate that money elsewhere? Because if not, why not just spend some of Greg Penner and the Walton family's money, right? I mean, no offense to Corliss Waitman. He's had a good preseason, but Sam Martin is a better punter as a whole. I mean, when you look at Corliss Waitman's career stats, it's a pretty short story. He's only had 7 career punts in his entire NFL career. He's bounced around a little bit, but he had some time with the Pittsburgh Steelers filling in a couple of seasons ago. And through 3 preseason games, I thought he was fine. I mean, Sam Martin got injured in week 2 before the Bills game, so Waitman had both punts in that game. But all in all, does anyone actually think Waitman is a better punter than Sam Martin? No, I think the Broncos are being pretty clear that they just want to save some money and go with the younger guy because they don't think Martin's all that much better. At the end of the day, we are talking about a punter, which you hope you never really say their name, because if you do say their name, chances are they screwed up unless they pin someone within the 5 here. Now, let me throw this question at you guys, sort of an off-the-wall question. Who is your all-time favorite Broncos special teams player? I'm not going to ask for favorite punter. That's not going to be very riveting in the comment section. I'm going to cheat and go with Montrell Washington because I'm just planning ahead a little bit. And I hope he can be that next Trenton Holiday, that next big return specialist for the Broncos. Now, George Paton's also making some other moves as he has to get his roster from 80-man down to 53-man. So not only Sam Martin is on his way out, but also UDFA Sebastian Guiterrez out of Minot State. Jeremiah Gemmel, you remember they just signed him like 4 days ago from the 49ers release. Well, they needed help at inside linebacker after moving out from Joe Schobert. He's gone as well. And Donnie Lewis Jr., who was waived with injury. Now, it is worth noting that not all these guys are going to be necessarily done with the Broncos. You could see some of these players return and, help out in help out in the practice squad and serve that role there. All right, next up on the show, kind of stemming from that Sam Martin cut, let's check out 3 more surprise cut candidates because maybe Paton's really looking to retool this roster and go a different direction than with some of the vets or some of the more familiar names. So let's start things off by Mike Purcell. This has been one of the biggest surprise cut candidates we have discussed all offseason long, At this point, it's borderline not even a surprise. It's not necessarily because of his play, but because the Broncos might look to do what they just did with Sam Martin. Save a little bit of coin, right? The Broncos can save north of $3.5 million if they cut or trade Mike Purcell with only a $1.5 million dead cap hit. And when you take into account the defensive line room and where Mike Purcell necessarily fits into it after signing DJ Jones, would not be blown away if Purcell's time is done. After all, it wasn't George Paton that gave him that 3-year contract extension back in 2020. So speaking of this defense here, we asked this question about a week or two ago, and results varied. So I want to bring it back up again. Grade the Broncos 2022 defense for me. A, B, C, D, or F. I gave it a B+. I don't think it's worthy of an A yet because this pass rush has not proven to be viable for an entire season. If Chubb and Gregory can play all 17 games, that's going to change my answer. But for now, I'm sticking with a B+. Next surprise cut candidate. I keep it on the defensive line, going with McTelvin Agim. Now, he played his tail off in the preseason finale against the Vikings. But at the end of the day, when we look at this depth chart here, it is going to be close. Deshaun Williams, DJ Jones, and Draymond Jones are all locks to make this roster, in my opinion. I think Payton will roll with 5 down linemen on the defensive side. So that brings in Agim, Purcell, and then you got 2 rookies in Matt Henningsen and Ojemudia. Who's he going to roll with? He's not going to ditch his rookies, in my opinion. So if he does roll with 5, maybe 6, that could lead Agim, a former third-round pick, keep in mind, on the outside looking in. He definitely did everything he could have done in that Vikings preseason game to try and secure a roster spot, okay? 2 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, one of which led to a Baron Browning touchdown. Now, before we check out my final surprise cut candidate, the best sportsbook partner in the game is back, BetUS. And they have an awesome deal for Broncos country, 125% deposit bonus. And all you have to do is go to chatsports.com/bet, use promo code Broncos125, and boom. So you put $100 in, they're going to match that, plus tack on an additional 25. So now you got 225 to bet with. What is my suggestion? How about you go with Broncos -6 week 1 from Lumen Field? Because I got it at -5. The sports books are starting to pick up on Geno Smith probably won't keep this a close game, even in front of his home crowd. I know it's going to be an emotional return for Russell Wilson, so maybe it might be close in like the first quarter-ish. But once this Broncos offense gets into a rhythm, I'm expecting them to handle the Seahawks in the second half. I'm taking Denver -6, over-under at 42. I'll probably go with the under. I just don't have enough faith in Geno Smith and the Seahawks offense in the first week of the regular season doing their fair share of work to try and get the over done. Now, my final surprise cut candidate is Michael Ojemudia. This one pains me because I'm a fan of number 13, and I want to see him work out and play for the Broncos this year. Had an awesome rookie season, fell off the map in his sophomore year, but Ojemudia had a rough week 1 of the NFL preseason against the Cowboys, got flagged for a PI, gave up a long reception. And unfortunately, in preseason, you only get so many snaps. So if one of them goes poorly, that tends to be the most remembered impact of the game. Then in week 2 against the Bills, he suffered a dislocated left elbow, which is expected to sideline him for 4 to 6 weeks. I think Ojemudia will end up making this roster. I do think it's going to be closer than maybe some people expect. If he does not make it, I'm not going to need to sit down and have a glass of water. I think it wouldn't be the most mind-blowing thing ever. But all in all, Ojemudia, a third-round pick from 2020, I don't think a bad preseason game and an elbow injury is what's going to be the straw that broke the camel's back for George Paton. I bet he sneaks him onto his 53-man roster. Let's check out some of the interesting news and notes and nuggets that came out of new team president Donnie Leach's press conference or introductory press conference with Broncos country. So Andrew Mason tweeting about it and asking a pretty good question, saying, asking Leach about the new uniforms potentially, saying, I think you've got to try and balance history and tradition with 3 Super Bowls wearing this uniform, but you've got to understand that taste evolves and customers evolve. So I would like to see new uniforms. The only catch with new uniforms is it can be a dangerous game before you actually see them, right? I think most of the Washington football team fans wanted new uniforms, probably regretted that when they saw what they had in mind with the Commanders. So the idea of new uniforms is tempting, and there's some fun designs out there on Twitter, but if the Broncos kind of go the Utah Jazz route and they are a disaster, there's no undo button, and then you're kind of stuck. Now, I'll let you guys decide and weigh in for me here. Do you want new uniforms? Do you like the current unis? Or do you think, you know what, kind of what Leach said, there's a lot of history and tradition behind those uniforms that have won 3 Super Bowls, but taste, time evolves and moves on. Maybe switching things up wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Now, as for Empower Field at Mile High, he was also asked about possibility of a new stadium, because guess what? When the new owner of the Denver Broncos becomes the richest owner across the entire NFL, yeah, he might want to pimp out his new crib. So Zach Stevens from DNVR tweeting out, Donnie Leach said he'll be evaluating the Broncos stadium situation moving forward. Did say Empower Field at Mile High Stadium is world class. I think if you just did some NFL trivia, most people would think Mile High is an older stadium than what it is, which is about 20 years old. It just doesn't have a major wow factor to it. And honestly, this day and age, you're seeing a lot of owners want to have that new, fun, wow stadium, right? SoFi, Allegiant, all these new first-class stadiums. I wouldn't be surprised if the Penners and Walton go, you know what? It's not that this stadium sucks. It's just that we have too many billions of dollars to know what to do with, so why not build a brand new stadium? But that is it for today's show. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, making us a part of your day today. Make sure you stay tuned for tomorrow's show because we will be going through the entire Broncos 53-man roster. So have those notifications on because once we get the entire roster, we'll be getting a video out to all of you guys watching at home.